sometimes it won't, sometimes that'll lag, so here we go.
Find it, but it's easy. It's so easy. Get a squeeze bottle, like what your 90 weight oil comes in, you know, a quart squeeze bottle. Just barely cut off your tip.
Cool.
So it's not
Happy days, happy days.
I don't know if that was an old joke or I like I said.
fill it right around.
Hey, you walked right
Or if
into
you
it.
got all that stuff comes everywhere. You can just squirt a little of that on the vines and those leaves. It takes about a week before you see it get
You didn't print a
Good, how are you?
for me, right? No, okay. It was all the same printed stuff.
From this is just our
Except
entire.
for that first resolution, that pretty much just said, we capped it at 14, you need at least the 11.26 for this, that was the only.
That's the only thing different. So I have that printed out right here.
Yep, that was the only addition to it.
Basically, you put 6 tablespoons in a quart decent food. And that's, or you, if you got a base bottle, that's 6 pieces, that's the 6 tablespoons. I killed right. Put your arm around it. Okay. I did that. It's bigger than a foot in diameter. Then take an axe and you just cut it places at the base of it. Also camera layer. Okay. Double it. You put 2 big bottles worth in or 6. There you go. And you swirl a little bit around it. I've done a lot of work with it, trying to find woody. This is really woody plant. It's not going to affect your grass. Peach orchard, peach trees over there.
And then you have the other house kind of as well.
I think that's one of the first plants they find in the solar system somewhere. Anyway,
Like I said, it's good enough as long as it's sleeve.
and it's so easy, and you don't barely rip off the top. Dribble a little bit. And you can wipe out some big babies. Those small ones. They're like this. Squirt around the marks, around the base of the tree. That's it. That's it. Yeah, easy. And if you got somebody that's got a fence line that's coming up in the fence line, well, you just treat your half of the fence line. It doesn't. You don't even have to argue with it. They just died. You know, I'm sorry, it just died. So, it's the best stuff I've ever come across. They use a lot of it in Texas to treat the campgrounds. And that's tough stuff. Tough. But you don't have to have a chemical license, so it's not restricted. Anyway.
No.
And if you want to talk to them and get a hold of them,
Yeah.
my wife.
Yeah, I think Michelle will use my
I mean, I've watched these things go on, and
I'm sorry. They wanted to extend their power rights. We're in our counties. You're the Del Taco driver.
Well, I'm leaving.
We're limiting it to formal.
Doesn't say that, but usually open it up, they say that.
Well, and I think, well, because this is specifically.
I couldn't remember who else we did.
Hi, Sophie.
No, we never had.
That makes sense, that makes sense as to why you.
For the most part, we try to get your. It
My heart rate just went up. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, hey, I don't have. You're kind of low.
Yeah, I don't have a baseline. Doesn't know what to tell me.
Nice.
The only one I get is
How are you? You've been here before.
I've been here once.
Okay. But it's recent, isn't it? A couple of
No, I
months?
sent you an email.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
I'm gonna address it again.
Sounds like you raise your tax rate for I got you. Okay.
I'm not cool with it yet.
I know.
I'm gonna tell you why.
All right. Good.
Here's the second thing.
Next year. So we'll see how this goes tonight if I go. Hanging out. How are you, Brian?
I'm good.
Good. Good.
I hope it stays that way.
Likewise. Likewise.
I got a hunch it's not good.
I knew.
It's so late.
That too.
Hi.
Brittany, are we ready? Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody out tonight. This is the Roy City Council meeting, okay, for August 20th, 2024. The time is now 6 p.m. Let me just clarify, because this deals with the truth and taxation, the state law requires the city begin its city council meetings with truth and taxation at 6 p.m. That's the reason why we're half an hour late. But I do want to welcome everybody out. I want to basically recognize that we have Councilmember Scadden, Councilmember Saxton, Councilmember Sophie Paul, Councilmember Jackson, and Councilmember Joe Paul with us tonight. If you would with me, I'd like to begin with a moment of silence and then a pledge of allegiance. So join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. If you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. We're going to open up with public comment period. I just want to make sure that we recognize that the public comment is for any conversation you would like to have on any topic, but there's going to be a public comment period in this meeting as well as a public hearing. The public hearing will be focused specifically on the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget. And so my comment would be is if you have some issues dealing with the budget you'd like to talk about or express, may I ask that you consider holding off and let us go into the public hearing, and then we'll discuss those issues and listen to your comments during that time. But the public comment period during this meeting is a moment or a time to talk about anything you'd like to talk about. So if you do, I'm going to open up for public comments. Please come to the mic, give us your name and your address. Public comments. Thank you.
My name's Janelle Holbert. My address is 4178 Westlake Drive. And I just wanted to come up and say thank you so much to everyone that worked really hard on Roy Days. I've been meaning to get to a meeting and say that, but haven't until now. So I just wanted to say that there's a lot of hard work, and my whole entire family really enjoyed it. And I just wanted to say that we appreciate everyone that put all the work into that. So
Perfect, thank you. Any other comments, thoughts? Please, name, address.
My name's Nick Lopez. I live at 4515 South, 2075 West. I'm gonna pull out my phone just for a moment. It's got my notes on it. So the streets 2100 West and 2075 West need some sort of speed abatement. I emailed this council back in May. I received 2 emails, one from Councilman Scandal and one from Joe Paul. In those emails, they talked about doing a traffic study. A traffic study over the summer when the school is no longer in session is unacceptable. For the fact of that these individuals are under exhibition racing down both streets. Junior high pedestrians are nearly struck daily. And snow removal cannot be a reason for those roads not to receive either a radar or speed bumps. Those roads on their own are unsafe to even walk during school exiting hours or coming to hours. I've got on video camera and recording individuals on flatbed trucks jumping from truck to truck at high rates of speed. By the time they hit my address, which is in the center of the street, they've easily engaged in high rates of speed. There was 2 individuals that I helped be identified by Roy PD, and they were given tickets for them admitting to the fact that they were at high rate of speeds. That was one incident that Roy PD showed up. The second incidents that are happening in Roy City, on 4000 South, right where I see Roy PD sitting and enjoying coffee, there are vehicles coming off of the trailhead that are unmarked, unlicensed, by minor individuals on high rates of speed, cutting in cars off, weaving in and out of traffic on both directions. And I know those vehicles are unmarked. Not only are they going on 4000 West, they're going throughout Roy. Where is our police department? Oh, on 4000 South and Midland. I have photographic evidence. This is not a single time occurrence. Perception is everything. Having worn the badge myself, these individuals that are riding on the roads are unlicensed, unregistered, and it's only going to take one time for someone to get dragged behind a car and killed. This council has now been notified by email on the 2100 West and 2075 West. This will now be a verbal acknowledgement that you guys have received this information. To continue on my notes, I might hold this for the public hearing. Code enforcement. You have one code enforcement officer, I've been informed. We are losing revenue and we are losing the ability as a city to draw in better residents to Roy. You've got kids that are walking on sidewalks, on overhanging trees, overhanging bushes. You're forcing your youth to walk on unsafe roads due to the failure of your ability for this city to make sure that code enforcement is there to enforce the fact that these parkways and walkways are unsafe. We also have illegal vehicles parked at Sandridge Park and what's the one over there by North Park Elementary that are parked overnight. I know that those roads are patrolled by Roy PD because I live there. I live on those walking paths. That's not my phone.
I think that's 4 minutes.
Okay. Illegal vehicles parked on your roadways.
Thank you for your input, okay? Okay, other comments? Name and address.
Good evening. My name is Paul Corbett. I live at 5283 Midland Drive. I would appreciate it very much if Midland Drive could be resurfaced. It's a very busy street and it's not in very good condition. It'd be nice if we could resurface that. The other thing I would like to mention is that I believe the speed limit on that street is 25 miles an hour. It's unusual to see somebody actually do that. I see people going faster than 40, I'm sure of that, maybe 50, not sure of that, but it kind of looks like it to me. And remarkably, school buses exceed the speed limit all the time on Midland Drive. And I think it would be probably a good idea if maybe the school bus drivers had a meeting and discussed that, find some way to correct that problem. You'd think if anybody would obey a speed limit, it would be a school bus. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to share a thought? Okay, name, address.
I'm Matt Howard. I live at 2991 West, 4600 South, and I've been a resident for 53 years and employed with Roy City almost 27. I wanted to talk tonight about supporting the proposed tax increase and why. I feel like the previous council members have dropped the ball, and now you are the bad guys that must play catch up when the funds are desperately needed. We all know there are projects coming up that are going to require the city to come up with at least a portion of the funds to pay for. But I want to speak more on behalf of the employees, the water department in particular, and why they should receive a pay increase. I've compared our starting wages to some of the surrounding cities. Ogden City water maintenance tech, just an operator one, starts out at $24 an hour. Roy City starts out at $17.06. A Clinton City crossing guard starts out at $17 an hour. In Woods Cross, an operator 3 makes anywhere from $26 to $37 an hour. At Roy City, an operator 3 makes $22.04 after 5 years of service with the distribution grade 4 in water, a collection grade 4 in sewer, a Class A CDL, a backflow technician certification, a backflow administration certification, and his skills and abilities are second to none. And I'm speaking for Cliff Lavender, who I see as the future of your water sewer, because I'm almost out of here. These employees are 40 plus hours a week and can often do and get called out after hours for emergency repairs, snow removal, It's not uncommon for them to work their regular 8 or 9 hour shift, get called out, and work another 8-hour, 9-hour shift through the night, and they are such good employees, they will report to work the next day at 6 a.m. When we show new department employees our 4300 lift station, I don't know how many of you have toured that, but, and we have to work on it. And the wet wells, or show them the wet wells, open the tank doors for them to see. Some have asked how all the water bottles get in the sewer line, because there's hundreds of them down there. So then we explained to them they're condoms that are full of wastewater. Amongst all the other biological hazards in wastewater, who wants to go pull a pump and clear the nasty out of them for $17 or even $22 an hour? Somebody's got to do it. Employee retention is a huge problem in this department, with pay being one of the biggest reasons they leave. I have 3 resident ex-employees behind me here tonight that were outstanding employees that will attest to that and make way more money from the start and have advanced $5 to $10 an hour in a short period of time. You have 2 DRCs in the water department, which is direct responsible charge through the state of Utah. I'm one of them. I'm looking for my earliest way out. Both will be eligible for retirement in the next 3 years. Your next senior employee has 5 years. That's Cliff. If you as city leaders do not figure out a way to become competitive with surrounding cities and continue to allow Roy to remain a revolving door, the lack of an experience and knowledge will end up costing you more in the long run.
Matt, Matt, thank you. Okay, I need to keep this to 4 minutes, okay? Thanks for your input.
Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Cheney, I live at 4851 South 3300.
We need to make sure that, for the record, we need to make sure it's on the recording. So please, just give us your name and address.
Can they settle it? Can someone?
My name's Mitch Cheney. I live at 4851 South 3300 West. I'll yield my 4 minutes to Matt to let him finish.
I appreciate the input, but let me make it clear. There's a public hearing that's going to follow this. That
I yield
really
that
is the best time to have this conversation.
So can I yield that to him at that time?
Mayor, he cannot yield. He can speak on his behalf, but he can't yield
Yeah.
for 4 minutes.
Yeah, we don't distribute
All right.
the time, but,
Okay,
but
thank you.
certainly if you like to speak,
Up here, I will go back to the police and the speeding.
okay?
Like I said, I live on 3300 West, just off of 4800.
Okay,
And from there to, 5175, it's pretty much a straight shot. One little S curve at the end. Constant speeders up and down that. Constant speeders in Roy all the time. And I would like to see more police presence in our neighborhoods for speeders. I got kids that live up the street, young kids, and we all know kids don't pay attention. And like this gentleman said, what's it gonna take, a kid to get killed before we get them to slow down? I don't know how we can do it other than have more police presence in our neighborhoods. That's all I got, thank you.
okay. Hey, thank you.
So if anybody wants to sit over here in these chairs, if they don't want to stand the whole time, there's more room over here.
Name and address, thank
Julia
you.
Corbett, 5283 Midland Drive. I just wanted to add one thing to what my husband said. In surrounding cities, I see signs up where they tell the people how fast they're going. People do tend to slow down if they see those. And especially if there was more presence of some sort. I think that would help.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. And we have that information based on what we heard there. Okay, anybody else like to share a thought, comment? Okay, what we might have, no, okay. If you stand up, I assume you're coming to the mic. Okay, hearing and seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into the action items. And thanks for the input. Obviously, that's what this public meeting is all about, sharing ideas, sharing information, see what the issues are from your perspective and see what we need to do to see if we can find solutions. We're going to now have a public hearing specifically to address the fiscal year 2025 final budget for Royce City. Now, we've asked Amber if she would go ahead and do a little introduction in terms of this, and then I'm going to turn it over to public hearing. I'll ask for a vote, and then from that, we'll listen to your comments. Please give us what you can within 4 minutes. We want to keep this meeting obviously on track, but more importantly, give everybody an opportunity to share their thoughts and comments. So with that, Amber, go ahead and lead us out on this discussion about the fiscal year 2025 budget.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. The fiscal year 2025 tentative budget was approved June 18th, 2024. The city has followed all truth and taxation requirements to approve a possible 14% property tax increase, which would add $625,372 to the general fund budget. The general fund budget includes police, fire, streets, parks, recreation, and community development. At the beginning of the budget process, we were faced with a shortfall of revenues compared to expenses due to inflation over the past few years. Departments citywide were asked to cut $550,000 from their operations budgets. Even after these cuts were made, the budget still needed an 11.26% or $500,000 tax increase to balance. If a 14% tax increase is approved tonight, this would allow us to approve the tentative budget as it was presented, plus replace $125,000 in operational expenditures that were cut. This additional amount will be placed in fund balance and can be distributed to departments as needed throughout the year by public hearing and by resolution of the council. If anything less than 11.26% is approved, the tentative budget will need to be modified. An 11.26% property tax increase would increase the average Roy residence $3.23 per month. A 14% property tax increase would increase the average Roy residence $4.03 per month. I now present to you Resolution 24-10 to adopt the final fiscal year 2025 budget. Any changes to the current proposed budget can be added by resolution to be made part of the final budget. A final budget must be adopted tonight. We recommend you receive public input and then consider approval of Resolution 24-10. Thank you.
Thank you, Amber. Any questions for Amber before I go for a motion? Everybody okay? Okay. Amber, thank you. Okay, then, do I have a motion to go into a public hearing?
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
Randy? I have a, Randy, and I have a second by Joe. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Okay, no opposed. We are now in a public hearing. If you have a comment you'd like to share relative to the budget that we're about to go through, then please step up to the mic, give us your name and your address, and then we'll go ahead and try to keep it to 4 minutes, would you please? Thank you.
All right, we'll get the ball rolling here. City Mayor, Council. I'm here today as a resident of Roy City.
Name, address.
Oh, yeah, y'all know me. Robert Percival, 6034 South, 2050 West.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a fairly unique perspective of this as a firefighter for the city and also owning a home in the city. This matter impacts me doubly. Do I love taxes? No. Do I see a need for a tax increase? Definitely, yes. And here are just a few of the reasons why. Roy City is in a personnel crisis. Not just in the fire department, not just the police department, also water, streets, recreation. All the departments are having this crisis. Because of our lower pay scales, we are a training ground. Entry-level employees come here to get training, certifications, and such, and then leave for better paying jobs in other cities. This actually costs the city more in the long run to repeat the cost of training and onboarding new people. It would be cheaper to retain the people we already have trained, the people that we have qualified in our city. Our aging infrastructure is in need of improvement and repair. This takes money. We all know everything costs more every year, and this includes running a city. What this boils down to is we as residents need to step up and make the sacrifices, continue to enjoy our city. And we know we have qualified and dedicated people working in our city, keeping us comfortable and safe 24 hours a day. Lastly, as a 27-year employee of the city, I can say, as a city council, it's time to step up from the platitudes and political talking points and do right by the employees that hold this city together with spit, duct tape, and grit. The police, fire, and public works employees, they're up at 3 a.m. working while residents, especially the quiet majority of residents, sleep soundly knowing they are protected and kept safe and comfortable in our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Lisa Jackson, 3635 West, 5400 South. I watched your July 18th meeting, June 18th meeting online, and I have some commentary on it. So, from what I understand, the money that you need for the budget, which will increase our taxes, will go to the departments of the city, which on the website are listed as administration, aquatic center, bid opportunities, community economic development, complex, finance and city treasurer, fire and rescue, human resources, justice court, legal, parks and recreation, police, public works, utilities, and somewhere else it was mentioned, information technology. I understand that you need employees and such. I disagree with Joe Paul and Ann Jackson about giving money to the departments and then letting the departments decide what to do with the money. I also don't understand why the two of you said you don't understand what the departments do. I thought that was part of what city council people do. I thought the city council people knew what this city that is being run, what the departments do. I think that we should have city council members that know what the departments do and that don't say, I don't know what the departments do, so I just want to let them do whatever they want with the money and move it around however they want. I agree with Brian Saxton, who believes that we definitely need to know what people are doing with our money. It's basically our money because you're taking the money from taxpayers. So then to say, we don't know what's being done with the money, but we need more of it, just doesn't make sense to me. Thank you, Councilman Scadden and Councilman Saxton for voting no on the tax increase. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else like to share a thought?
What tax increase? They don't know what.
Name and address, please. Thank you.
Carolyn Owens, 2135 West, 5800 South. I realize that Roy City is in need of some of this money, but I feel like some of these are excessive taxes for those of us that are on a fixed income. And so you kind of need to take into consideration us seniors that struggle paying the taxes. So if you can keep that in mind, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Name and address, please.
Nick Lopez.
Thanks.
It's 4515 South, 2075 West. So I'm gonna kind of piggyback on what this lady just said. The federal increase of Social Security was only 3.2%. The federal employee increase was only 6.7%. Most of your residents either work for the federal government or are on federal assistance for retirement. A 14% tax is outrageous. Outrageous. When the average family is only making 80,000, 84,000. It's pretty outrageous. That's minimum wage. You have businesses that are out of commission. Where's our code enforcement? Those businesses need to be filled. They need to be filled. And you're failing them by not getting that revenue. The taxes you're gonna take from Rob Peter to pay Paul, I'm sorry. It's unacceptable. The fact that we're wasting money on fireworks, literally putting our money on fire and just setting it off. We're running Christmas lights. You don't buy a Nintendo when you need food in the fridge. Shameful. There's only been 2 council members that I've dealt with. One is Joe Paul, and one is Randy. One has addressed me directly and not just scoffed me off in an email. It is shameful. The fact that residents are going to be forced basically from their home that are on fixed incomes for a 14% tax, outrageous. How about raise it up 7%? Do a slow growth, but an instant 14% tax is outrageous. You're crazy. Who do you think you're going to get that from? We've got our own families to feed. I understand. I grew up under the badge. My dad is a 25-year Salt Lake City firefighter. I grew up not having the greatest things in the house that all you needed to need, but we had everything we needed. I understand these gentlemen that wear the badge. I've lived it. I've walked the line. I've seen what happens inside the families. But she is 100% right. It is our money. We should know exactly what that money is going for. And when I have Roy police officers saying that they don't have what they need to do their job to stop speeders, outrageous, councilman. Do your jobs. Make sure they have what they need. Don't just let them have a cost of living just to have a cost of living or have open reign on what they do with the budget. It should be accounted for down to the dollar. You should be stewards of our money. Not only for your employees, but for your residents. Think about what you could bring down. You don't go buy fireworks, set off parades, and incorporate your law enforcement that's already undermanned, but yet you're gonna have them work extra hours so you can have a parade. I get that it's tradition. I understand that. Being a veteran, I understand tradition. But if the city is that much in crisis, maybe we tighten our belts. And it starts with you. I'm sure the police chief and the fire chief are doing an excellent job. And they're doing what they can with what they can. But you guys are not putting in a stipulation on how they use that money to ensure that their police officers are not only safe, but doing their jobs into the full capacity. Firefighters that may need tools that will save their lives, oxygen tanks, masks, coats, helmets. They don't need patrol cars to go home with them. You want to tighten money? Stop putting new decals on everything for your city. Wasted money. You get a government plate, put it on your cars. You want to stop speeders? Stop letting them mark their cars. Wasted money.
Thank you, Nick. Okay. You certainly can when we get all done. Just make a note. Okay, just make notes, and then if you guys want to have a rebuttal, we'll have an opportunity to discuss that, okay? Please, name and address. Thank you.
Janelle Holbert, 4178 Westlake Drive, Roy, Utah. And I just wanted to say that I noticed from just the public comment section that lots of people were asking for additional services or more services from the police and fire and the city. And so we can't keep asking for more services and then say you can't raise taxes because there's just, you can't have both. So I just wanted to point that out. And I also wanted to point out that it looks like if it was 14%, and I can't remember what the other percentage was now because I didn't write it down fast enough, but it would cost my family $48.36 a year for this for a 14% tax increase. And I realize that that could be difficult for people on fixed income, and I hope that you will address that part of it when you're answering questions, because I know that some people will be very interested in that, like how people on fixed income, I know that there are resources for them when it comes to tax, so I just wanted to make sure that maybe that's addressed. But I know that, you know, for $48.36, I know that I've at least used the police and walking guard services and a lot of the other services that the city has used. I know that our family uses those. I know we've made at least 2 police reports, and we follow the law, but we've had to make 2 police reports in our life because you don't know what's, you know, going to happen. And sometimes when you don't know anyone else to call, that's who you call, and they help you figure it out. And so I just think it's good for us to think about, you know, and we're not the only city in this situation. I'd like to also point out, and it's not just even in our state. The little town I grew up in is also facing the same things from Idaho. They're growing as well, and so it's something that you deal with when there's growth, and the entire, you know, West is growing a lot. So a lot of cities are dealing with that. So I think that that's good for us to remember as well, is that along with growth, we've also had inflation, and when we have to pay more for our services, we know that people have to get paid more. So none of us like tax increases. I know I've talked to almost all of you on the council, and I know you don't even like tax increases. And I know that you've, you know, had lots of people have lots of different opinions about it, and it's a difficult decision to make. And but I do think we do need to keep our city running at a level that's appropriate for our population, and keep up so that we don't have huge increases in the future. And we've seen what happens when in the past we don't plan for growth in the future. And I know that, you know, everyone used to treat us as a bedroom community, and we still are in a lot of ways, but we're trying to grow our economic, you know, our businesses and our economy so that we won't have to rely so much on our residents' tax. And so a suggestion I also had just for citizens is that, you know, I see a lot of when new businesses come in, sometimes people complain and things about, and say, oh, I wish it was this business or that business, but instead we should be grateful that businesses come in and help support our tax base, and we need to be a community that businesses want to come to so that we don't have to keep increasing our personal taxes. And so that's just things to think about, and conversations I've had with lots of people. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that. So
Okay.
thanks.
Okay, thank you. Howdy. Name and address, please.
Jamison Lewis, 2135 West, 5500 South. Question, do you guys have the data for so you have 2024's budget, and then do you guys keep the actuals from that budget from that year? Does that make sense? Where's that data hosted?
You're talking about what we actually spent?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the website.
What website is that?
That would be the Roy City website.
Okay.
RoyUtah.org.
Yeah, Roy Utah.
Down to the dollar?
Oh, yeah. We have to be audited.
Yep.
So to answer your question, and if you really like specifics, if you can reach out to Matt Andrews, he can give you exactly where to find that so you can go research. It's a pretty hefty document.
Excellent.
But it'll basically give you all the details.
Okay. And for 2025, do you guys have that same analysis down to the dollar for
The
everyone?
proposed budget, yes.
Everything, okay, down to the cent, right?
How the money,
Okay. Well, because I heard you guys are giving money to different departments and you don't know exactly how they're allocating this money, so how do you know exactly where all the money is going?
it's in the budget.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
if you look at the budget that's being proposed, and it's on the website, you can see exactly down to the dollar where all that money's being
So
spent.
these departments know exactly, how many vehicles they're getting or
Yes.
decals, everything?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
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 Perfect. All right.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Name and address, please.
Kyle Newman, 5948 South, 3650 West. To start, I'm going to go over a few numbers from the last few years on historical tax increases. 2016, 37.92%. 2022, 13.8%. 2023, 10% tax increase. Also, something else to think about in those tax increases is about 2022, skyrocketing of property values due to people moving into the state of Utah. My residence increased $500,000 in the span of 4 years. My property is not worth that. Not taking into account these tax increases that have already happened, the city's already had a significant influx of funds from property valuations increasing. The next thing that I'd like to go into is some questionable projects that I've seen around the city. One of them specifically is the installation of a roundabout at the intersection of 5700 South and 3750 West, which was put in and torn out within 3 months. The reason I bring this up is rather than looking at tax increases to throw money at something that's probably not operating appropriately, is to look at an independent third-party valuation of both the funds and the budget of the city, as well as the city employees' duties, and seeing what duties can be combined in reduction of employees. Rather than throwing more money at people who we don't actually know what their jobs are, having that independent third-party evaluation, identifying what people's positions are, what their jobs are, what they are doing, and where the money is going, and if the projects and the future projections are actually an asset to the city. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, name and address, thank you.
John Nicholas, I'm at 4317 South, 2400 West. I grew up all my life here in Roy. I've been a Roy resident, lived over by Roy Jr., and went to municipal as a kid. Most of you I voted for, a couple of you I didn't, but that's okay. I won the lottery, I got most of you. My concern is with these tax increases, they have been pretty consistent. Weber County's added them, you've added them year after year, and I'm not so sure we're living within the city as fiscally as we should. I am a huge supporter of these guys. I share the badge in another county, adjacent county, so I understand what they need, and they often don't get their equipment. But to have council members and people that say that they don't know where this money is going, you say that it's down to the dollar, but you got people putting on, comment that they don't know where it's going to go. They're just going to allocate it, and wherever the agencies or the departments put it is where they put it. It's not really going to convince us that you're doing things fiscally for the benefit of the citizens. You need to get what the fire department and police department need to do their jobs. I get that, but you don't need to buy or build new roundabouts with pretty decorations. You don't need to keep the fountains running 24 hours a day all year round. You cut some costs in some areas. As a Roy resident, I'd just like to see a little more fiscal responsibility and transparency with your money.
Okay, okay, thank you, appreciate that. Anybody else like to share a thought? Name and address, please.
My name is Nancy Inman, and I'm at 5302 South, 4200 West. And I just wanted to say that I don't think that maybe you've done enough digging into the line item budget before you use the taxpayers as your personal ATM. It seems like every time there's a shortfall, you're coming to the homeowners in Roy and raising our taxes. Well, these are unrealized income. So I bought my house 19 years ago, and now it's worth X amount of dollars. But those are unrealized gains. They're not real gains. I'm not collecting interest on this. In fact, my home is an expense. I have to pay to maintain it. There are other things that I think that you can look at that you can take money from. For one, I Googled Clearfield deletes, or Clearfield does away with youth football because they were city funded and it was costing them $158 per player. So that was $20,000 right there. If I could, and they decided that they would get rid of youth football and not raise taxes on their homeowners. There are other options for youth football. I don't think that Roy City should be subsidizing youth football when there's other options. So maybe you ought to look at some of the things you can cut out of the budget instead of going to the homeowners with a 14% increase. That's kind of high.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Name and address, please.
Lance Parker, 3586 West, 6050 South, Roy. First and foremost, I think there's been some thought that's been put into this as far as budgets and numbers and different things and trying to figure out where it's going. But there's been a lot of good points that have been brought up here. And hopefully you guys are taking that into consideration, because there's certain things that were, the biggest thing was the price of your home is increased. So you've already got a tax increase off of that. That's a big one that you guys need to take into consideration. And to put it on the taxpayer to keep on raising and raising, there's a lot of fixed income, and that was brought up, which is good to think about that, because, you know, you say $4 a month, and that's not a lot of money. It really isn't to myself. I can afford to do that, but there's certain people that will not be able to afford that. That might be the difference between a meal and not taking a meal. So we have to consider that. So instead of just saying that we're going to go after this particular branch, and how have we looked at maybe doing a different tax on maybe a user's tax that's more fair amongst everybody that is in Roy? You know, you've got Harmon's, you've got different grocery stores and different things like that, that maybe that's where you get some more revenue. But because to say that it goes back to just the homeowner, that's not fair. It really isn't. You know, we need to start thinking about how it actually affects the individuals, and maybe making more of a fair tax that affects everybody, not just one group. Okay? That's pretty much all I've got to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jameson again. Hey, question. So when you guys have a project and say you have bids coming through, is that public knowledge as to who is bidding on that project and how much each one is proposing to charge for it?
Matt, you need to answer that one, but I believe that is public, and that information, to the extent it can be, in fact, is made public on who wins those bids.
A lot of it falls under grammar requests, that you can actually grammar request a lot of that information. A lot of the times when we bid, it goes out in the newspaper in different avenues for people to place bids on it.
Well, not many people read the newspaper, so.
Yeah, very true. Also our website, it's on there. And then also everything gets backed out into our financial reports.
Okay.
So a lot of the information's in there, as well as our budget.
And your analysis based on why you chose particular people over other, you know, companies and whatnot, like your whole process?
We're beholden to. Yeah, we have policy that we just abide by, but we don't draft up anything to say this is why we picked up this person over the other, but there's bid documents and stuff that you can find that out.
What is the name of those documents, like the naming convention?
I'm not sure what you're asking, so.
So like your bidding process, so like I'm looking at the budget, right? So you're charging a certain amount for services, right? So clearly you've chosen someone to provide those services. I want to know your decision process.
Okay, so like, when I'm thinking projects, I'm thinking like a capital project.
Anything,
You're talking
really.
like, so like, let's say waste management would be a good one.
Yeah.
We have contracts and stuff, and it's adopted by resolution. So just like in this very room, you would see at one council meeting, we set out a bid, and then the city council would adopt that contract between us and Waste Management. So that's all done by resolution.
And these
so that's a
con-
little different than just like a bid process with a
Yeah, I want to
construction.
know before the contract comes out. I want to know why my city is making decisions on to go with a certain company, other than or rather than others, and then I want to see the contract and then see everything they're doing. You know, the whole process from because right now we're looking at the budget, right? That's something you guys. It's after your decisions have been made. I want to know why those decisions were made. Does that make sense? Not that I'm against it. I just want to see it from inception all the way to when it's actually completed.
I think in benefit to this particular conversation, this is an educational moment. And I think in order for us to basically work your your views, it would be advantageous to you to sit down with Matt or sit down with Brody. They can explain the process.
Yeah.
And then I think you can come back and ask the kind of questions you're asking is why are this decision made on this one? Because you're talking about procedural requirements based on our purchase policy, based on all of the resolutions that approve. That's a deep, deep discussion.
Yeah.
I think if you can ask those, you clearly understand how it works and then come back with your questions, we can certainly better answer those. But to try to do that tonight, may be more difficult. But I appreciate the fact you're interested because this is your public council.
Yeah,
your
it's a part of
public
the
city.
numbers.
Yeah.
And so having that kind of input would be very helpful for you.
Yep,
But I
go
think
ahead,
you
Randy.
can do that better if you talk to the city manager or the deputy city manager and get those questions answered.
Yeah. So one thing to kind of take into consideration, I'll put my old public purchasing hat on. A lot of what we take in purchase is done via state contract. So a lot of the things that we go through and do are already pre-negotiated.
Over your head, Cass.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the thing. It's like take as an example. One area that I'm very familiar with is like IT purchasing, right? So IT purchasing, we're basically working with state-approved contractors who they go through and they get audited, and we know we're getting the best of pricing as far as that's concerned.
Copy. Now the contracts, the actual agreements. Do you guys have that hosted to the public anywhere?
Yeah, it would be all
it's
done by
great, yeah.
resolution,
Yeah.
which is also very public, yes.
Okay, cool. What's the naming? Is that on like the Roy page or is that a state page I got to visit?
A lot of it is, done in the city council meeting, so you find it in the agenda. If you would like to just
In the
view
agenda,
one of the
okay.
contracts,
Yeah.
you just file a grammar request, which oftentimes something like that would be free.
Okay.
And then we just provide you with that information.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Name and address, please.
My name is Dava Neal, and I'm at 2417 West, 5900 South. I also want to say, I know this is going to be a repeat of a couple things that other people have said, but I do really appreciate our law enforcement people, so I give a shout out to them. And I do agree, like, I've had my house now for, I think, somewhere around 11 years, and it has significantly increased in value, which is a value that, unless I were to sell the house, I don't get to, like, really enjoy that. And I have to maintain the house. And my property taxes over the last few years, if we go another 14%, it will have almost doubled my property taxes from when I purchased the house, and that's a lot. The other thing is, I have a question because, and I should have come a little bit more prepared, but isn't there something that passed for the Utah Constitution when it comes to property taxes back in 2021 that said that you could only raise the property taxes X percentage for a 5-year period? Are you familiar with that?
Not that we're aware of that.
Okay, all right. So anyway, it is, I know it's only X amount of dollars per month, but those dollars add up. And we have a lot of people that are struggling with the economy the way it is, with food and utilities and other things, that it does make a challenge for a lot of people that I know. So I hope that you consider that and that we can tighten up the budget, and I just wanted to share those thoughts with you. Thank
Okay,
you.
well, thank you. Okay, other comments? Name and address, please.
Paul Corbett, 5283 Midland Drive. I have a question.
this, regarding this 14% increase in taxes. This is 14% of what?
14% of what is the question?
Yeah, the question in terms of 14% or what? What that basically will translate to, and Amber and Matt help work me through this if I get off track. What it will basically do is it will change your property tax rate. And the Roy residents, whether it's residents or businesses, anybody owns property, will change the rate. The rate then is a calculation that will take place in terms of the market value of your home. And then there's a 55% reduction, or a 55% of whatever the market value of your home is. That number will be times by that rate, and then that will calculate your annual property tax that is required. I think the proposal that's in the budget now is a 0.001762? 1706. So what it would do is, if your property was $400,000, then it would be 55% of the $400,000. Then whatever that value would be, approximately about 215 or so, 218,000. Then the 0.001702, okay, will times that, and that would be the annual property tax that the resident would owe.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
You bet. Okay. Name and address, please.
Cindy Winham, 4152 South Lily Drive. Having been married to a department head, I know that Chief Gwen has to give you a line-by-line item of where every single penny goes. There is no waste with the fire and the city and the parks and the roads and the police. That is well accounted for. Last year, being the second year in a row that you asked to raise our taxes, this one, of course, you know, being the third, there was a particular job that you all had slotted, being the economic development personage. It sounded like to me, I felt like you already had the job promised to someone, because when it was recommended by me that Tony Reynolds had done this job 10, 11 years ago, and it did nothing. He's actually went on to Ogden City and was fired from there, but it did not produce what the cost of the job was supposed to produce. For example, the wage was $169,000, plus his fleet car, plus his gas, plus his schmooze money. So we're talking $250,000 to $220,000 to pay for that one slot that you were all set that you had to have. And yet the letter you sent to us said that you did not get the economic development you hoped for, and that you now need to have us pay more. Just saying, there's got to be some tightening somewhere, and when somebody says to you, experience shows this job doesn't work, I was ignored, and it seems like it didn't work again. So let's tighten our belts into those sorts of things, and as much as everybody says, and this is where, and you know, if you read the Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrate or Greater Magistrate, when a majority of the people say no, you are elected officials, you represent us, we're your boss, we're telling you no, that's where it should stand.
Okay, well, thank you. Okay. Okay, name and address, please.
Michael L. Gann at 2174 West, 5650 South. I just would like to say a little bit about this. We went through this about 3 months ago in this forum. It was at 5:30 instead of 6. And every one of these councilmen and the police department, the fire and budget, or Brittany, I think it is over there, said we got to do this or this. And you went back and forth with it. You know how many people were here? How many people from Roy were here? 4 of us. Now, if you would have been here then, we could have dug into this a lot more and maybe made a change or two. Right now, we're at the point where we don't get to make a change because the state says you have to have it in. And I didn't know that, but I started coming to these meetings. And each one of these people up here offered to give part of their increase that they were supposed to get this year to the fire and police department, so that there'd be enough bullets for practice and a ladder. Now, I'm not really hammering you about what you said tonight. What I'd like to see is more people come to this meeting. And then we won't have arguments about whether we put the money where it should have went, or if we're wasting money. And sometimes you have to try things before you know whether they work or not. But I would just like to mention that we need to be here to this meeting the first Tuesday of every month and the third Tuesday of every month. And if we're here for that and they're planning meetings, which we'll find out when they're having them, then we can make a difference. So remember that when you go home tonight, that this meeting is here every month. Once in a while, last week they didn't have one. But I just like to put that forward, that some of you be here besides just 2 or 3 of us. And then we can make this a little better, and we can go through the whole year and know what we're spending and what we haven't. But they did go through this budget about 3 to 4 weeks ago. I can't remember.
Both May and June.
I know we went through it more than once, but we went through it almost the final time. We were making it so that it'd be ready for this
Correct.
tonight.
That's correct.
So you have to show up to those meetings to make a good change. So, but they do their job and do their due diligence. And these people here, I worked with the police chief on this corner, and we got, I think, a better way to get our kids from that apartment area to school without getting them killed.
That's correct.
So I appreciate the people over here tonight, and I appreciate our city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
My name is Kevin Homer. I live at 5398 South, 4000 West here in Roy. I'm not going to speak to any light item issues of the 2025 fiscal budget, but I do want to talk about the proposed tax rate increase. First of all, I've sat for many hours in meetings with mayor and city council and staff going over the budget for many months now, a lot of the work sessions. I have seen you all try to be very diligent in reducing that budget. Did it not end up at about 6% reduction that was done over the past few months, somewhere around there? So I appreciate.
7.5%.
7.5%.
7.5? It was painful. I could see that in all of you, everybody on the staff, all of the directors of the departments. It was very difficult, I can tell. Part of the problem is, a couple of years ago, property tax rates were increased even more. 40% was the impact on me 2 years ago. Significant amount of money that I had to come up with out of pocket. This little 14% increase is not really that big. For me, it'll probably be about $50. $50 a year is not that big a deal. But in my mind, it's not about the amount of money that it is. It's the principle of unending tax increases. And it's the principle of ever expanding things that the tax base is used for. That's the problem that I have. So what I would do is I would tell you I do not consent to this tax increase. but I also have a couple of ways that we could make it more palatable for me. I would ask the city council to draft and pass legislation that would do two things. First of all, tie any tax rate increase to a corresponding budget decrease so that we can get to a place where we have more of a net zero budget instead of ever increasing the tax rate. The other is I would also ask that every tax increase also be accompanied by a sunset clause so that after however many years you want to put in there, that tax rate is going to go away and we don't have not only tax rates that always go up but never go down. So for me, that's what I would propose. In the meantime, I would not support this tax increase.
Okay, thank you.
Good thing everybody talked about, so it made my list shorter.
Okay. Name and address, please.
Matt Howard, 2991 West, 4600 South Roy. So, Mr. Mayor, in the letter dated May 29th, 2024 on the Roy Connection, you talked about summer improvement and permits and the importance of residents applying for them and paying for them. Oh. I have mentioned this for years, and I've always been told that the council is not interested. But what about all the right-of-way permits that Roy City does not charge for? Roy is the only city that does not charge for these. All these internet fiber and boring companies, just to name a few, have come in and have been allowed to dig in the roads and park strips, which have a cost to the city and manpower in blue stakes inspections, plan reviews, and they have not been charged a fee. Blue stakes, because we're members, we pay a monthly cost. It's 90 cents a ticket for anybody, company that calls a ticket in. And then we have to supply a man, the paint, and then because we own many utilities, power, water, sewer, storm drain. So it's 90 cents a ticket anywhere in our boundaries. Denise Fife tried getting this started over 20 years ago. Everybody knows who Denise and Doug Fife are. In 2 decades, the thousands of dollars that the city could have captured over the last 2 decades could have maybe helped with some of the shortfalls or other areas. And I've put the numbers up. I've had all the stuff and turned it over to Brandon's office, but I get told you guys ain't interested, and that's just strange to me.
Okay.
And, well, in final, water and sewer rates need to go up. Nobody likes it, but you can't live without it. And so does taxes, so I support you guys, because I agree, next year you're gonna be right back doing the same thing.
Okay, well, thank you.
Lopez again.
Okay, we really want to keep, unless there's something different.
No, there is something different. I just was.
But I
reviewing-
don't want to,
He did use his 4 minutes. The other gentleman that did get back up, he didn't use his 4 minutes previously. So to be fair, if you open it up for him.
yeah, open up for everybody, yeah.
That's fine. I'll be
Okay.
back.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to voice their position, so please do. Name and address, please.
Chris Hadley, 3820 West, 4900 South. First of all, I have to say a couple of quick things. I brought my boys here, and I appreciate that you're holding this because I want them to learn a little bit about civics and civic duty. And even though I know that this meeting is required by law as a truth and taxation meeting, I appreciate that you're still holding it. I do appreciate the work that you do in behalf of our family, and I extend that to fire and police and all the departments. A few things, though, that I would like to ask, and this is kind of an unpopular topic. How much are we losing on the pools?
It's actually, if you.
Because I know we're net losing.
It would be hard to give you that number here, but let me offer a thought. every amount of money that we collect in revenue.
Yes.
And all of the expenses are detailed into our report. And you can calculate them year after year after year. I will tell you, there is not an organization in Roy City that makes a profit.
Correct.
Except the courts.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting how that works.
Okay. But if you have an interest in that number, Matt can direct you to where that documents are, and I have looked at that number. You're certainly welcome to pull those numbers and go back, as I have, 10, 15
will.
years.
I will. I just find it interesting that, and I get it, right? Governments aren't meant to make money, but why don't we have why don't we have private run pools? And the answer to that is because they don't make money. They lose money, right? I work for the Ogden School District in their business office. We run 2 swimming pools. We run 2 swimming pools because no one can afford to buy a swimming pool and make a profit off of it. So my question is, why is Roy City, why is Ogden School District, why is Ogden City running pools that we're losing money on? I get it. It's an unpopular thing to bring up. Probably I have half the people here who were frustrated with me for even saying something, which is fine. I get it. But my proposal is that if your job is to be a government and not to run a pool, then why can't we close the pools as a start? What are we afraid of? Because we're losing money. Those lose money. I get it. Fire doesn't earn money, right? I get that. But that's a government function. A pool shouldn't be a government function.
Okay.
That's just one area. That's my opinion. Now, to reiterate something that was said earlier, my family moved into Roy 20 years ago, and we bought our house for $115,000. Right now, and this is a county issue too, right? The county assesses my value at just under $400, but I haven't sold my house. I haven't realized any of that value. So in essence, you as a government, and all governments, I get it, I work for one of them. I work for one of them. And we assess a property on something that hasn't been realized. And it's interesting to me, and I won't share all the details, but I'm a little bit nervous about something else. Every time property taxes are raised, someone else goes into default. As the accountant for Ogden School District, I get the last 5 years of default property taxes, and from 2022 to 2023, it went up by 1/3.
Okay.
1/3.
Okay.
So please consider that.
Okay. Well,
And thank you.
Thank you for your input. Okay, name and address, please.
Mitch Cheney, 4851 South, 3300 West. So, people talking about cutting the pools, cutting our Christmas lights and all of that other, the stuff that the city provides for us. I remember growing up, there was a lot of programs put on by cities. A lot of those have gone away. $50 a year, $60 a year is not a lot to pay. My only complaint would be, let's use it physically responsible. I think we need our pools. I think we need our parade and our Roy Days. Because if you don't have that, our citizens are gonna go to Clearfield and use their swimming pool and pay their fees. Our dollars are gonna go other places. So I think we need to keep those. And we do need to tighten our belts, and we all got to give a little more. Am I in favor of huge taxes? No. But I am in favor of the residents of this city having places to go, parks to go to, swimming pools to go to, police officers that answer the call. When you call 911, fire department, when you turn your water on. And so I'm not in favor of taxes, but they're a necessary evil and we all need them. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to share a thought? Please. Name and address.
I'm a little shorter, I guess. Curtis is my name. I live on 6,000.
That was kind of vague. Can you give
yeah.
us a
I don't-
first and
I don't
last
know all
name?
these
and
people. I don't want them all following me home.
They won't, unless you got a fire.
Thomas Paine said, government is in its best case a necessary evil, in its worst case an intolerable one. Personally, I feel we're much closer to the latter than the former. There are many government services that should not be offered. You know, there are a lot of people that don't have the means to find 70,000 friends and take $50 from them per year. I wish I had a nice, easy way to fix my budget that way. That'd be pretty great. I think that continuously raising taxes double digits is inappropriate. And this has got to be a really fun meeting for you all to prepare for. That's it.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
Scott Bradford, 4281 West, 5250 South.
Perfect.
I'm not scared of anybody following me home. So, there's been a lot of good said today. I think that I'm going to echo what young Mr. Smith's just said, that really we need to be careful not to put our fingers into things that we ought not be with the government. Time has slowly put cities and states in the position of providing services that really, I think, aren't intended for those entities to provide. I like the idea of drawing back. I believe that others will step up and take care of those type of things if we do. But I think as long as we pay for that as a citizenry, that it'll always go. I'm basically opposed to raising taxes because, just as it's been said all these many times, when taxes go up, they just don't come back down. And I think we all know that. We've been in an inflationary period. We all have more expenses. It's more costly for all of the city and city employees to take care of those things. I understand that. I also know that my property has raised in cost, and that we've increased our taxes even without a tax increase. Our taxes have doubled, and since we've been here in Roy from 23 years ago. We've moved, and so we're in a little different position, and our taxes have increased because of that. I just think that as we slowly whittle away at everybody's income, we slowly will depress everything until we all fail. I think police and fire department, I loved seeing those group that left to take care of an emergency. That did my heart good. I think that's essential. Those people ought to be taken care of. We have the water department that is so essential, right? Streets, we've got public works. There are essential required things. But I think we just have to limit ourselves back so that we do those things that the government, Roy City, can do best, and leave the rest for somebody else to do. Even though we love it. I love Roy Days. I love to visit the lights at the city. I don't like paying the extra $50 or $100 on my property tax. But you know what? I have it. I can do that. If it was my parents, it would destroy them. If I was on a fixed income, it might be a little different. With all of the inflation, we're all paying more. So the 14% increase of what we're already paying, which is a small amount, It's just the increase. It's the cuts. It's the death by 1,000 cuts, right? And that's what I think everybody's here to just express. Love the essential services. We need to do that. We need to support them and make sure that they're right. But it's probably time to tighten our belt and cut some of the things that maybe we can cut.
Good.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Name and address, please.
Suzette Liu, 4098 West, 4650 South. I am here to state that I am opposed to a tax hike increase. I'm opposed to the tax rate being increased. I have a stack of papers here of past property tax notices, and for as far back as I can find records, every year we've been looking at a tax increase for somebody, some organization or another. Every year, for as far back as I can recall, we've been seeing tax increases, either city, county, state, or federal tax increases. You are U.S. citizens. You've seen the tax increases throughout your life. I'm here to say that this increase in tax every year is unsustainable. Eventually, we will reach a point like some of the socialist countries where 90% of our income is going to taxes. I don't want to live in a socialist country. I like America. I like freedom, and I like prosperity. And the more percentage that the government takes away from me, the less prosperous I am, the less money I have to spend. Now, there was a time in my life where we struggled just to make the house payment, just to make ends meet. Tax increases like this would substantially hurt us. I'm okay now financially, but there was a time in my life when we had young children, we just bought a new house, and things were tight. We could not afford more tax increases. And I dare to say, at one time, I did look up the average income of Roy City and compared it to the rest of the state. Roy City residents, on average, earn less money annually than West Haven City and other cities, such as North Ogden. Okay, so we have a lower range of income in Roy City. So we have citizens who this will really hurt them. We have a lot of citizens living on razor-thin budgets. A tax increase will hurt them. I don't believe in raising taxes. Now, cost of living has gone up. Inflation happened. I understand the city's got a tight budget. Things are hard. Some things might have to be eliminated. But we all had to do it on our own budgets. I didn't see an 18% increase in my annual income. I didn't see a 13.81% increase in my annual income. I wish I did. That would have been nice. But the fact is, in my own budget, we had to take a look and we had to cut out some recreation. Okay? We couldn't have all of our wants and needs fulfilled. And some of the people who are living on very tight incomes might have to cut back on groceries in order to pay their rent or the house payment. And this is really bad for the renters. Because renters, if you're a homeowner, you only pay 55% of the property value taxation. If you are a landlord, you're paying 100%. That passes on to the renter. So a homeowner pays 55% tax, a renter pays 100% of the tax on the property the resident they're living in. The poor will get poorer. I work with a lot of homeless people in Weber County. They didn't get homeless on purpose. There's a fine line between being able to pay your rent or your house payment when you're on a tight budget and then homelessness. I beg you, please keep the tax rates from here on out at the same rate or even better, lower them. But do not increase the tax rates in Roy City, ever. Because we're heading towards a 90% socialist country. Thank you.
Thank you. Name and address, please.
Sean Jennings, 4643 West, or South 3100 West. You guys are kind of getting reamed tonight. It's
Okay, go ahead.
It's about as local as we can get. We can't complain about the taxes coming from Washington, but we can definitely stand up for what we believe locally in our local government. And I'm definitely against raising taxes. We've had cost of living and inflation going up. Our wages have not gone up that much. And I know that you guys are dealing with the same thing with having to pay for services and paying employees as well, but everybody is dealing with it. So I think that it would be in the best interest of everybody to just make sure that whatever increase that you guys are going to do is the bare minimum. And then it's to cover essential items, and police and firemen are definitely essential. We need them. We've had horrible roads for a long time. We can live with some horrible roads for a little bit longer if we have to, and really hoping that after November, a lot of my tax problems in the government are solved. So let's go as little as possible this year, and then maybe revisit a tax increase next year with hopefully some different leadership in our government.
Okay, thank you. Name and address, please.
Hi, I'm Amber Jennings, same address, 4643 South 3100 West. I just wanted to share with you guys that I think sometimes things hit more if you speak from the heart. So I hate public speaking, I hate it. I was a teacher for 16 years, but this I hate. But I'm here tonight because we moved to Roy 3 years ago, and we had an increase in our house payment last year, and it was pretty brutal. At the same time, we owe, excuse me, I hate public speaking. We owe back taxes, so we're paying for that, plus increasing the tax rate that we're working. I'm a pediatric nurse, and we can only work so much in a week. We're also renting out our house and sharing our house space. So as a nurse, you should be making a pretty decent wage. And as what my husband does, he has a pretty decent wage. However, we are the new low income. You know what I'm saying? So I look at my neighbor next door that's on a fixed income. My heart hurts for them. You know, like others have said, to reiterate, it's not just about this tax proposal. It's about what's been happening over the last couple years. So I am against it. I think that you should table it. I think that perhaps revisit it after we know what our economy is going to do in the next year or so, and that you guys really look at the allocation of funds that you have, where the money is going, because every dollar counts. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anybody else like to share a thought? Okay, seeing none. Council, do I have a motion then to go out of a public hearing?
So moved.
Randy, second. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we're out of public hearing. Okay, Council, I know you probably would like to make comments on some of the comments, and certainly this is an opportunity if you have, from your notes, you'd like to share some thoughts. I certainly have some things I think we owe it to our residents to talk about, make sure we kind of explain a few things of how we got here, maybe be a good point. Let me just make a comment, if I can, as I open the discussion. And then it's important that we have a conversation before we basically, I ask for a motion on this particular resolution. Let me just first make a point. When we walked into this budget, the departments was asked and required to cut $647,000 out of the budget before we ever seen it. They certainly wanted more personnel. They didn't get them. They made good arguments, but the fact of the matter is we can't afford it. $647,000 is an awful lot of money for a small city like Roy. The conversation was pretty interesting. Do we have enough money to pay for the bullets for the police officers to do their target practicing? Now, that's a pretty bold statement since they have to be certified. I will tell you, Roy has been really good about trying to make sure that our forces are equipped. Recently, we bought a brand new fire truck, last few years, in fact, a couple of fire trucks, new ambulances, new cars, as they get our police officers to get our service organizations where they need to be. You might be surprised based on a comment, and it's really interesting, about even the vehicles. If we can buy the vehicles in bulk through the state, we'll use them for a year. And interesting enough, we can resell them after the end of the year for about what we paid for them, because we get a really good discount, and we take advantage of those discounts. I'll tell you what's really got us here in this difficult issue. The federal government, as you may be aware of, raised the interest rates. And the purpose of those interest rates being so high was to stop you from spending. The fact of the matter is that's exactly what it was there for. People are not buying houses like they bought. They don't buy cars like they bought. They're just limiting, okay, and asking you to limit your spending because of a problem called inflation. Well, let me be clear. Roy City, like most cities along the Wasatch Front, gain most of their revenue by three sources. Sales tax, which is the most we get in Roy City. Property tax, which is the second most we get in the city. And franchise taxes, those utilities and things that you typically are familiar with. We used to get a little bit of money from telephone lines when you had those hard lines in your homes. But just like most of you in this room, including me, I removed that line in my house, and now I use my cell phone. I doubt Roy City gets anything, okay, on that cell phone, although we're putting a tower in Roy City to try to get some compensation, okay, to help people. The point I want to suggest to you would be is because Roy City is so dependent on sales tax revenue, and you've done what this country has asked you to do, is stop spending, our revenue is flatlined. In fact, the documentation I provided to the city council prior to this meeting indicates we're in decline. Month after month, our sales tax revenue is not generating to the levels that we need. And here's another problem. It was eloquently stated many times in this meeting that we could very well and are losing our best. And as a result of losing our best is because Roy City is not paying for those services. We're not paying what we should be paying. 2 years ago, the city council raised the salaries of our employees to try to get us there. We were not at the top, but we were a solid right in the middle, just like most of the cities along the Wasatch Front. And today I think you can find an argument that simply says that we are no longer in the middle, that we're closer to the bottom. How can that be? How can, in fact, we did so much to make sure that we're competitive, to keep our skilled laborers here. Only a short period of time, a year or so, we're now falling. And by the way, we do provide our employees the merit increases and the COLA increases to keep us level as best we can, and we're still falling behind. And the reason for that is simple. Governments compete against governments. And if Ogden or Salt Lake wants to raise the salaries of their firefighters, their police officers, the public works by $3, by $5 an hour, sometimes they can do that. They're pretty big. Roy City struggles to do that. And so sometimes some of our firefighters, our police officers, our public works people, our administration team, okay, walk across the county line to another city to get 50 cents more an hour, maybe $1 more an hour. And what do we have to do? We have to reshuffle again. We have to do salary surveys, and we got to find ways by which we can get competitive again. At the same time, when our revenue streams, in fact, are declining because you're tightening your belts, you're not spending like you normally would spend, and as a result of that, we're not generating the sales tax revenue we need. So what does all that mean? We got to get lean. And you will see year after year, Roy City has been one of the best managed cities in the entire state. We are lean. We just got to get better. We have to get better. My fear, and it was certainly echoed here, it may very well be the next steps we have to take will be talking about cutting services. And when 70% and 75% of your budget pays for salaries, you cut services, you cut people. You have no choice. So we're going to make some tough choices. We've got to do some tough things. I promise you we're looking at all options. All options. We're looking at vacant properties in Roy to sell them on the open market and get housing or businesses on those properties. I'm telling you, we're looking at everything. And by the way, the Roy Days budget was cut this year. I've never seen that all the time I've been in elected office, but this year it was cut. So trust us, we'll do better. Trust us as we work through this, we'll get better. Trust us, we're going to make some hard decisions, and we ask for your patience as we go through this process. But just recognize is nobody on this bench, nobody in this room, nobody who lives in Roy City likes this idea about raising taxes. Certainly not me. But it's a hard decision. But I will tell you this, so there's no confusion. I cannot let this city council walk out of here without a decision tonight. We just don't have time. We have to walk out of here with a budget decision. The law says Roy City has to have a balanced budget. Has to have a balanced budget. Sometimes I wish the country, the nation, understand that very principle, because I think they forgot that. Council, there's a number of things that we can walk through. I'm going to open up, and you had some things you'd like to share, Joe. Brian, please, let's talk about the issues and then talk about what we're facing before I go for a motion. Ann?
Okay, first of all, I'd like to say I'm a Roy resident for 66 out of my 70 years. I'm a widow. I live on Social Security. I have a part-time job. Trust me, one day I won't be able to work, and I don't want these taxes to be raised any more than any of you do. And I'm not important enough to tell these departments where they spend their money. So I don't know what you heard on that work session or whatever, but Me and Joe, they don't come to us and get their okay and say, can we buy bullets or can we buy a new truck or whatever. We're not that important to tell anybody that works for this city what they're going to buy. I wished I got $84,000 a year when you brought that up, Mr. Lopez. And I want you to know the fireworks are not paid for by the city. They are donated by Parsons every year. The city does not pay for them. And the Christmas lights, we don't pay that bill neither. We pay our employees to put them up, but we do not pay the power bill. That is also donated. And we have comments from cities all around who love our city because of our lights. We could do away with football. How about we do away with baseball, softball? I mean, I coached my kids all growing up. We could do away with all those things. We just finished the complex. Yeah, it would be a great idea to close that now. I mean, what's the city unless you have amenities for your citizens to enjoy? I mean, we have the aquatic center, we have the complex, we have beautiful run parks for our kids to enjoy. We don't have junior high football anymore, but we have, so the rec will pick up football. My grandkids didn't play football, but I watched them play basketball and baseball. Kids have to have something to do, or then we're gonna have more vandalism in our parks. Don't you want kids to be involved? You learn so much from being on a team. You learn sportsmanship and just you make friends. And that's what oh my God, my mind just went blank. That's what we have the complex for. All those seniors that came and poured out their hearts and said that's where they go every morning to swim, and they met friends that gave them reason to get out of bed. I just feel that we have had so many work sessions on how to do the budget. I've talked with Chief Gwen, Chief Williams, and Chief Williams, they've already lost, they lost a firefighter this year. You know what the mental anguish is on those firemen to deal with something like that? We had a shooting. We had 6 policemen that we had to take off the streets because of this. So we want to stop the speedings, but we don't want to pay or hire more firefighters. We have code enforcement, and we wanted to hire another code enforcer, but that costs money. So we didn't do it because that costs money. So it's like we can't have it both ways. We do the best job. We don't, when I went for city council, I didn't even know it was I thought it was just a volunteer position. So I've been on it 5 years. We don't get paid an enormous amount of money to do this for the hours that we spend. And we do the best job and try to do what's best for the citizens. And I know that we can never make everybody happy. The fountains is recycled water. So it's not costing the city to run that. So anyway, we lost a lot of properties, 5,600. We won't be getting property taxes off anymore. Probably over 50 properties. Thank heavens we have 4 grocery stores. That's all I have to say. Is because if we didn't have those 4 grocery stores, then I don't know what Roy City would do. So that's just all I have to say.
Another car wash like you've been doing.
Yeah. Well, that was all approved before I was ever on this
wrote that out of
council.
code.
We actually wrote that out of code, so
Yeah.
they can't put more car washes
Right.
in the downtown area. Ms. Jackson, I don't know what you were referring to when you said we don't know what the city spends. We've got 2 of the most masterminds right here with Matt and Amber on a budget that we get an itemized budget of what exactly is being spent. We had 2 work sessions and 2 council meetings where we hashed that out, and we went through everything. We went through what all the cuts were, what all the things that there were multiple levels of cuts. And so I'm not sure where that comment come from, but I also know you were one person that come to this meeting along with 3 times as many people as here tonight that said we have to keep the complex open. That costs the city a lot of money to keep that complex open. And we did it because people said, the people come and said, we need to keep that open. Well, unfortunately, that part of that has put the city. Now, we did get some grant money, but that was a lot of money out of the city coffers. It was said, we do the best we can with what we have, but when we're losing, when I hear from my public works director that he can't keep employees and police and fire, we've got to take care of the employees because as a resident, if you come to me with a concern, all I can do is pass it on to a department head or to a city manager. I'm not the one that's gonna fix your roads. I'm not the one that's gonna put out your fire or protect you. It's the departments. And if we can't keep good employees, then we can't run the city effectively. And with the amount of money that was cut out of the budget, and there'll have to be more money cut next year, but my concern is the next cut's human capital. And somebody mentioned that there were 3 tax increases in the last few years. There were only 2. There was a 10% tax increase in 2022 that we brought on 2 more police officers and 2 more firefighters because we were told they needed more people. They were at minimum manning. They couldn't take time off for training. They couldn't take time off to vacation. And so we added 2. They actually asked for twice as many as that, some even 3 times as many as that. But we said we're going to do the minimum that we can do to get by, which is where we're at now. I mean, the minimum we're going to be able to get by and give cost of living increases to the employees is probably just a little over 11% tax increase. In my opinion, that's what we're going to have to do to keep good people, or we're going to be a training ground. I went and got my hair cut the other day, and the lady, her husband or her son works for the fire department. And he said, he told his mom the other night, I was the senior EMT on my crew today. He's been on the force, on the fire department for 1 year, and he was the senior EMT on his crew. That concerns me. You know, we have things that cities around us don't have. West Haven and Hooper doesn't have a police department, doesn't have a fire department. They pay Weber County and Weber Fire. What they're paying for Weber Fire, just for the fire department alone, is more than what you pay the city in all of your property taxes. And so there were people saying, hey, why don't you scale the fire department back or move it to Weber Fire? Well, yeah, that might take the liability off the city, but it's going to double your taxes because of the assessments on that. So, I mean, we're doing the best we can with what we have and trying to listen and work through it. But, you know, rates and everything have gone up for us. It's costing more to run this city than it has done in the past.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Brian, comment.
Hey. Yeah. First of all, I talk slow, so be patient, please. I've got a lot on my mind. I'm really torn over this budget, and I'll tell you why. March 19th, 2 years ago, roughly 18 months ago, Roy Fire saved my life, period. Don't know who was on the call, but you did. It was March 19th last year. And I appreciated it, and so did my wife. That being said, I'm one of those that is also on a fixed income. And my wife works part-time for the Ogden School District, and she got a whopping 1%. So we are going backwards this year. So what I would think would be the wise thing to do would be to take maybe some money out of our reserve fund and mitigate this tax increase so it's down to a single figure. I think it would, that way we can keep our fire and our police unscathed, our public works unscathed, and we can use that. And we can recoup the cost through the sale of the property assets that Roy City has. They've got 2.4 acres of property just off of 4800. If we needed to, we could sell that and recoup the reserve funding. But I know that this, in the area of town I live in, I know there's going to be a lot of seniors hurt with a 14% tax increase. And I'm sharing that, and doesn't matter who follows me home. Thanks for your time.
Randy, please.
Well, first and foremost, thanks everybody for coming out tonight and voicing your concerns. Run for city council, they said. It would be fun, they said. This is one of those things that when you take and you run for city council, you don't anticipate. There are only 5 people in this room, actually technically 4 because you weren't with us the last time, that can legitimately look at every one of the citizens that's in this room and say, I have raised your taxes. Okay. It is an incredibly, incredibly heavy burden, and it's not one that we all collectively take without due consideration and, as was mentioned, due diligence. The interesting thing that, as a city council member, I'd always heard the concept of what's referred to as the silent majority. Okay. The silent majority I didn't understand until I came across and I sat on this side of the die. When you look at voter participation, in my particular election cycle, I think we were less than 40% participatory rate as far as those who were registered to vote and who actually participated. So there's still fundamentally over 60% of households and 60% of the constituency base that I have to, when I go through and I make decisions as a city council member, that I have to go through and take into account. And when I look at it through that particular lens, again, raising somebody's property taxes, raising taxes is not something that any one of us on the council look forward to do. But as has been stated, taxes are a necessary evil. We just recently, just since we approved the budget, if you reflexively look back at some of the events that have happened within our city, we had a plane crash. Okay, plane crash is turning around and it's taxing our police, it's taxing our fire, with undue overtime to go through and make sure we're doing the investigations and we're doing everything that we are required to go through and actually do as a city. Just this last week, we had a shooting, right? As has been stated, we put 6 police officers on paid administrative leave whilst the investigation is ongoing. These are things that, from a budgetary perspective, we can't take into account because everything is a moving target. On top of that, one of the things, just from an understanding perspective, Royce City is not the federal government. We are not going out and printing money like our federal brethren. We are required by law to run a balanced budget. So every dollar that we take in, whatever revenue stream, as the mayor laid out, we bring in, we have to take and return back to you as the constituents in some type of service. And so just know and understand that tonight we're going to go through and we're going to vote on a path forward. And just know that, especially if you talk to my wife, no joke, is probably over the course of the last week and a half, 2 weeks, I'll just be walking through the house and I'll just sigh deeply. And she'll be like, oh, what now? I was like, just think about it. I've got to go and I've got to face 12,000 households in Roy, 40,000 residents, and I've got to look them in the eyes and say, you know what? I'm probably going to have to raise your property taxes, but in the same breath, I want you to all turn around and look at every one of these firefighters that's in uniform. Look at Chief Gwynn, look at Chief Williams, look at our directors for Public Works. These are necessary services that we, as a city, are providing for you. And as such, it is our responsibility as council members, and it's our responsibility as a society to make sure that we are going through and taking care of those individuals who are taking care of us. And so just know that this isn't something that we as a council take and do lightly. This is something that we have all internalized. We've all spent many untowards hours digging into the budget and trying to find ways and means with which we can make the increase as minimally impactful as we possibly can. Understandably, it's going to impact those, but just know that we as a council do seriously take into consideration all angles and all avenues in terms of before we have to go through and raise taxes. Thank you.
Okay, Randy. Sophie, comments?
Just a couple quick ones, and I kind of mimic everybody that there's a lot that goes into this. There is, I'm proud to sit up here and say I can be a part of this team, because it takes, when you start this, you don't, like he was saying, you have no idea what you're going to be asked to do and where you're going to be asked to cut. And because of this team right here, we have, and all of our department heads, we don't have to dig, but we had work meetings and we did dig. We dug hard. I cannot believe the amount of time that we spent together as a group. We were respectful. Everybody had ideas. We hashed it out. We came back to the table many times saying, this doesn't work. How can we cut here? Where can we cut this? And so I can say, due diligence. There is nothing that we haven't tore apart or asked questions. I know each of us have spoke. We've talked to Matt. We hash out constantly. I call the department heads. I talk to people. I talk to employees. I think there's nothing, we owe it to our employees, because if I get another phone call saying somebody else has left to go to another city for more pay, I'm going to just, it breaks my heart every single time. And so as residents, I love that you're here tonight. I love that you're part of this. But when you're here and we're doing this, I want you to remember those times that you came in for the senior center, for the complex, for whatever comes next. The aquatic center is next, rec center, football is next. Come to those meetings and voice your opinions, because this is probably some of the hardest job I've ever done. Like, I've had some pretty good doozies of jobs, and this is like by far my 120-page documents that we get to read on top of multiple explanations. It's a lot. It's a lot. And so I respect this whole team up here for hashing into this, for digging into this, for putting so much time, for so little pay, and to always have our questions answered by our admin. I can't thank you guys enough for what you do so that we can make decisions and can come up here and say, we have done everything we can and this is our best. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, Sophie. Let me just cover a couple of questions that were asked. Let's see if we can make sure we settle some. I can't answer everything, but I think we can answer a few. There are going to be people in the city that can't afford any property tax. Council, you know that. Residents, you know that. There are provisions within state law and within the county that helps them. Those individuals, they qualify to get some level of compensation. It's not a lot. Very few people basically qualify, but the program is certainly there. And I would encourage you, if you have an interest on that or your neighbor has an interest on that, please get back with us, send me an email, whatever. I will point you to where the documentation is, both in the state law as well as the county, in terms of defines how, in fact, we can help those who cannot address a property tax increase. Just for the record, most of our roundabouts are paid for by grants. Roy City has to pay some, but most of the money does come from grants. There is some options available. We're working on some more roundabouts, interesting enough, but we're certainly applying for those grants, and we'll make sure the money is, for the most part, there before we basically break ground. Certainly, we can look at combining city functions. There's opportunities that, whether we do the physical locations to be consolidated, or there may be other things. But let me just make it clear, most of the administrative duties that Roy City is responsible for in providing that, and oftentimes a lot of the increases you may see, particularly to our enterprise funds, are pass-through costs. We simply administer it for the benefit. These are organizations who fundamentally, by their purpose, just simply ask the city to do the administration work. So when landfill requirements go up for us to do dumping at the landfill. We don't do that. We just pass through that. And so our waste management contract has that, and if their costs go up, we just pass that through. Don't like it, but it is kind of a way a process works. Let me just cover a couple of things. First thing is Roy City doesn't set the value for homes. That's a county assessment, a county responsibility. If you looked at your tax notices 3 years ago, they all went up. And then 2 years ago, they all seemed to went down. I mean, I've never seen such a roller coaster in terms of cost values of houses that I've seen over the last few years. It's just kind of crazy. But a lot of times, and you're not the only ones, as it was stated in this conversation, most everybody has a property tax increase every year. You can see it. The reality is that it's not always Roy City. It's other taxing entities, particularly whether it be the school districts or whether it be the county or whether it be just a variety of taxing entities. They basically have their public meetings and they basically have to approve it through public input and make a decision. Roy City certainly is no exception to that. It's just that a lot of times we get a property tax increase in our notice and we find out Roy City had nothing to do about that. It wasn't us, but certainly we do get a lot of people who ask, and we have to help them through that. There was some other things about looking at our permits, maybe our user fees, maybe our impact fees are not maybe where they should be. We certainly have a responsibility to look at those. I will tell you, and if you're not listening, you need to hear this. Roy City has some of the best in the county. And if you don't think that other cities don't take advantage of that, let's don't be naive. The fact of the matter is, whether it's our complex, whether it's our aquatic center, whether it's our parks, Roy City's got some of the best. And the reality is that other cities take advantage of that. Now, are we charging them right? We need to take an action. I think I heard you clearly. Maybe we're not doing enough on that. So we'll take an action and we will assess that. But just recognize is that we do have some great services we provide to our residents, but other cities know that as well. Okay, let me just clarify exactly what can happen tonight. The policy as it's written, the council during establishing the tentative budget says we will not let this decision go over 14%. That is the max it can be. If a property tax is approved tonight, it cannot be more than 14%. But it can be anything less than that. The council has the authority basically to change that to 0, to 11.2%, to somewhere where Councilman Saxton suggested is maybe it needs to be a single digit if it's a tax at all. The council has the authority to make any of those adjustments tonight. And that's, council, the conversation I'd like to have is, okay, you've now got a budget. Matt, by law, has to provide the city council a budget. You have that in front of you. I'd like to have a conversation in terms of what you'd like to do, recognizing is if we continue to move with the possible property tax increase, the max that property tax increase can be approved tonight would be 14%. So let's have your ideas. Let's tell us what you're thinking, and maybe we can solidify before I go to a motion to approve resolution.
So I just want to first of all say that, you know, Roy citizens can appeal your tax with Weaver County assessors, because my friend did it and saved $350. So that's a pretty big savings right there. So you can go ahead and do that. But what Brian brought up about, so if we say went with a 9% increase, single digit, so, and then we need 11.26, do we have enough money in our budget to pay that difference in our fund?
So there's obviously a reserve fund balance in there. We typically hovered around, we would like to hover around 18%. That was something that the city council set forth quite a while ago. We can't get below 5%. That's kind of it's 18% of revenue. That's what that fund balance represents. So that's obviously a moving target as well. The best time to look at that target is during the financial statements, which we're nearing. We'll probably get done within, we have to get done by December. Best guess, the last time Amber ran that, we were within like 15 to 18%. To say that we have money in reserves, we do have money in the reserves account. When we're talking about COLAs for employees, this is something that is going to hit the city every year. This is not something that's going to hit the city just 1 year. So when we're talking about economic downturn that the mayor was talking about, the sales tax, the primary source of revenue for the city is in decline. It is setting the city up for a harder year next year.
I think
because it's not only this year that we're worried about, it's next year as well.
I think if I remember right, we have to increase our revenue $1.1 million every year.
If we're wanting to keep up with COLAs and merits, yes.
And we've already been told that, yeah, we're giving the COLAs, but we're already being set up for a wage survey because, as the mayor said, we went from middle of the ground to bottom of the ground, which that leads me to believe there's going to be a wage study coming and a potential wage adjustment to keep the bleeding of employees, which, where's that going to come from? The rainy day fund.
Right.
And so if we pull money out of the rainy day fund right now, we may not have enough if we have a big situation happen or to fund if we've got to get more firefighters or more police officers.
Well, I know that when I talked to Chief Williams, and he said he'd have an appointment with any citizen in Roy who he would like to talk to and tell him where his money goes. But most of his firemen are all young firemen who don't have a lot of experience. And I know I'm sure they're experienced enough if my house burned down or I had a heart attack to come take care of me, but I would really like the one who's been on the job a little bit longer, maybe might know more. I don't know. I just feel bad for him because, like we said, he trains them, you get all the equipment for him, and then they leave. And I know Chief Gwynn is losing one to Riverdale this week, another policeman. And so we've lost so many good policemen that we are a training center for most all departments, fire, for water and public works. We train them, and then the other cities take them. And it's never going to end. So I know that it's not a popular thing, and I just think we need to raise the taxes 11.26. That's the bare minimum to keep our employees here, and that's $3.23 a month. And that's what I propose, that we do the tax increase because I don't want to lose any more of our employees.
I have a quick question. Is it 11.62 or
11.26?
26.
Randy, comments?
Or did you have any, Brian?
Brian?
Well, it's a rainy day fund. And on some of these people's account that have shown up, I think it's raining. And I think that we're in a position where we can mitigate some of this, what we're asking of our residents. I mean, I might be a little Pollyanna about it, but if we're not going to use it in times like this, when are we? And I just think sending everybody backwards by 10% is just not the right way for a city government to respond to the residents. And I hate to be the unpopular one, but I'm new, so I guess I'll be forgiven. But the bottom line is the bottom line. And we can get our fire and our police, we can get them all taken care of by just taking, 300, probably close to 300,000 out of the rainy day fund. And there's got to be that in there. And we can recoup that cost with the sale of the city parcels that are right now not even on the tax rolls.
Is that a guaranteed sell though?
No.
Yeah,
No, we
and
still have to
then like
market
Matt
it.
says, it's gonna rain every year.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, Matt, you give your opinion on it. You're the city manager. You know more knowledge about it than I do, so.
Just to be frank, I think the way I look at it is you're taking out a loan, giving it, giving a higher pay with no expectations of earning that money back year after year. When you're selling a parcel of land, you can sell that parcel of land, and so be it. If we have a parcel of land to sell year after year, we can do that. But when you're given the taxes and you're raising them and saying we're going, because the 11.26% tax increase would give the employees a 3% merit increase. And that wasn't a number that we just picked out of the air. That was a number that we took Social Security to the state of Utah, to the federal government, to neighboring cities. And I don't even think that we're on the high end of it. We're definitely not on the high end of it. A lot of the neighboring cities, just like before, are raising at a higher rate than we are. So this is, from the budget, we're putting the bare minimum forth.
Right.
And that's why we find ourselves year after year behind. So good financial management to say that we're going to take out a loan without any expectations to get the money back, unless we start selling more, because we have 2 parcels that we've identified now. But is it going to be our parks next? Is it going to be the complex next? Is it going to be the aquatic center next? If that's the kind of discussions that we want to have, we can have those discussions.
Yeah.
But to say that we want to start spending money that we don't have, we have the cash value and that fund balance when we used it to pay for the complex, that's a one-time cost that we're not doing that every year. And that's traditionally what we have been spending our fund balance on.
Yeah.
Right.
And my purview, and you've heard me say this in multiple council meetings, is I look at the rainy day fund as it's not the rainy day fund, it's the catastrophic fund. It's when we have something catastrophic go south in the city where we've got to pony up some cash. If it was your street and all of a sudden we had an entire area road collapse, or we had a something catastrophic happened, that's what the rainy day fund is. It's that emergency fund. It's not necessarily to cover these types of expenses. It's the one time we don't know that it's here, that it's hitting. And that's always been my purview as far as the rainy day fund is concerned.
Me too.
I mean, 2 things that have been brought up tonight that I think will end up coming out of the rainy day fund, because there's no way you could have budgeted for it. Chiefs, you couldn't have budgeted for a shooting. You couldn't have budgeted for an airplane falling out of the sky. But the manpower and time that took is going to tank your overtime budget. And so as time comes, you're going to go to Matt and say, Matt, I'm out of money for overtime. What do we do? That's where the rainy day fund's going to come in. So
to piggyback off that, sorry, if you weren't over, I can.
well, it's the same thing. How many water main breaks have we seen? I mean, I'm constantly hearing people say, there's another water main break in front of my house. We've got aging pipes in the city. There's acidic soil down on the southwestern end of the soil or the city that is just eating the pipes, and they're bursting. And so they're constantly out there. Well, you can only budget for so much of that, and then that's the catastrophic is what we're dealing with, and we're already seeing it. So that's what concerns me of kicking the can down the road, is it's already happening.
I know I sit on a committee, and I was the fire chief at North Ogden, Mr. Barker. And I was showing him on a chart that I had met with Chief Williams of how much our firemen make. And he was like, oh my gosh. So our firemen at 5 years are what his firemen start at. And he was just, blown away that. So it's not like, I mean, we're lucky to keep our firemen, and we want firemen that will stay in the city. They love working for Roy City. A lot of them hate to leave, policemen and firemen, because it's such we have such great leaders in our city, and they hate to leave. But when they're going to get more money, they have to put food on the table, so they leave to go to other cities. And most of them with regret, because it's a family, and they love who they work with. But I just, I just know all of you need to get involved, and then there's 2 seats coming up next year, and then my seat will be available in 2 years, so run for city council. You have no idea. We try to do our best. We try to look at all the facts. And we have to make hard decisions. And I had no idea this is what it was going to be like. I never even came to a city council meeting till I got on the city council. And when I was told by Bob, our mayor, he said that this council has dealt with more issues than the past several city councils. And I was like, oh, hallelujah, I got in right at the right time. So, but it's tough decisions have to be made. And like I said, it's going to increase my property taxes. I will have to live off my Social Security when I don't work at Roy High anymore. And so I don't want to raise taxes neither, but I want a fireman to show up at my house or a policeman if something happens. And then we have speeding people, you know, speeding on all the roads. Well, we need more policemen to, you know, to radar and be on those roads. And it's just an endless cycle. And I just think the only thing we can do is raise our taxes 11.26%, the minimum to keep our employees, and that's $3.23 a month. And I just proposed that, so.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. Let me just make sure it's clear. What's being proposed tonight is not singling out any department.
Right.
We're going to take care of city employees, all city employees.
Right.
We're not going to basically judge one department better or worse than the other. We have an obligation. What's in the budget is to take care of all employees. I want to make sure that's clear. Here's what we have on the table, Council. I will ask a question, Brian, because I think you opened an interesting door. If not 11.2% to reach it, what kind of percent do you feel needs to be presented to the council you think you could live with? If we were to draw money from the fund balance, and there is money in the fund balance, what kind of percent are you thinking you might be supportive of if in fact the council considers it?
That's a lot of pressure. I would like to at least see us get it down to a single figure.
9%?
Can we go 8.5? I got to pay these taxes too.
Understand. So your going in discussion would be as you could probably live with an 8.5% property tax increase if there is one. Councilman Jackson suggested 11.26% to cover the employee requirements. Okay, let's talk about those. Are those workable numbers that you could live with?
I have a comment on that. So you're saying take the 8.5, take fund balance, or the rainy day fund out of.
Correct, to pay for the rest.
Out of the fund balance.
Mhm.
Okay, so when you do that, all you're doing is next year increasing your rates 20% instead of
Correct.
11 or
pay the piper.
14. I don't want to push this down. Every council has been accused of that for the last 20 years, pushing down the road, pushing that can down the road, excuse me. I don't like the tax increase either. I have family that lives here. My kids live here. I don't want to see it, but I don't want to see more than we need. I want to see our employees, their merits and their COLAs taken care of. But if you take out of the rainy day fund, all you do is next year this room is going to be filled to the brim because it's going to be 2025. Am I wrong?
No.
No.
You're correct.
Okay, so I can.
Wait,
You have it. What I need to do is I need to get from Sophie what she's suggesting. Are you suggesting?
Well, no, I'm.
You like
the
11.2?
11.26.
Okay.
11.26.
I just need to make sure where we are. Brian, go ahead.
Well, I mean, all we're talking about is hypothetical for next year because we don't know where our sales tax revenues are going to be. And my point being is that as we continue to take from the taxpayer
You see that?
it continues to reduce their level of discretionary income, which in turn hurts sales tax revenues, which are on the skid. My point is we've got a couple of projects that are coming down the pike that might be able to turn our sales tax revenue figures around and give us one additional year to work at that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't
Yeah.
know if you noticed the hotel that we were hoping for. There's a condominium
Condominium
sign
sign,
there because
yeah.
they said they can't pencil a hotel, which brings
But it,
hardly anything to us compared to what a hotel would.
I just hate to go on what ifs.
Yeah,
So,
might.
Money we don't
so
have.
if we, do the 11.26 this year, and if a whole bunch of stuff comes through next year, then maybe we won't have to have a 10,
Correct.
or maybe it'll be 8% or 9%. But for this year, I go by what the city manager, he runs the city and Amber runs the city. And I've sat in on the audits. We're one of the best run cities in the state. That's what the auditor told us when I sat in on it. And I go by what Matt says, and I just feel that we have to do it this year, and hopefully something will come up. I mean, I feel sad about that hotel, because that was going to be a great tax for our city to have, the hotel tax. But we don't know what's going to come up next year. I mean, hopefully inflation will be better, and hopefully interest rates will go down, but that's not a guarantee. And so I just know what we have to take care of now. I don't want to lose any more employees, and we need to take care of our employees now. And
Okay, and
So-
Joe, what's on the table are two numbers, certainly 11.26 and 8.5. But what's your thoughts on those two numbers?
I'm at the 11.26 because I'm looking at your numbers and yeah, there's the what if, but the trend is heading down. There's nothing that tells us the economy is going to change. And so we're going to kick the can down the road farther next year.
Okay, Randy, your thoughts?
I was just going to be the bad guy and go for 14, but I'm in favor of at least the 11.26 to go through and basically take care of our employees. I think that's tantamount to what we need to accomplish tonight.
Okay, council, any further comments or questions before I call for a motion? Okay, hearing none then, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 24-10? Matt, walk me through this, okay? Because as the resolution talks now, it talks at the 14%. How do we want to then discuss the resolution in terms of what appears to be an 11.26?
We'll just do the amended ordinance or resolution so that it addresses that it's 11.26 instead of the 14%. So
Okay.
that would just need to be in the motion that's made.
Correct. Okay, I just want to make sure we got that. Council, then, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 24-10 for the final fiscal year 2025 budget and setting the 2024 certified tax rate at the 11.26%? You okay with that, Matt? I just want to make sure, because this is all going to be legal.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the motion. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Randy? Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Ann? Brittany, this is a roll call vote, okay?
Councilmember Saxton,
nay.
Councilmember Scadden,
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Jackson,
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul. Aye.
Okay, Resolution 24-10, as stated, is approved. Okay. Now we have the city manager's report and council report. So Matt, do you have anything you want to share with us tonight?
Yes, just a few things for tonight. October 21st through November 2nd, Monday through Friday, we have the city dumps open down at Public Works. Saturday from 8 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock p.m. Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. And then also we have a big event this weekend. August 24th is the day of service for Roy City. We have 11 different projects set up. So please come out to that. It starts at 9 a.m.
So if it's raining, will they still do it?
I sure hope it's not raining.
I
Yeah.
checked the weather 4 times.
I know.
and-
It's,
I think it's supposed to be cool, but
And
I
it's
don't know if
nice.
it's supposed to be
Okay.
It's
raining.
gonna be nice.
Yeah.
Okay, anything
Yeah.
else?
Nope.
So just remember then the day of service, and then obviously the October date when they're, we're gonna open up for the public to get rid of their excess waste.
So that's October 21st through November
21st,
2nd,
yeah.
yes. And I was a little funny on the time.
If you could, Michelle, do me a favor, Matt, we're gonna need to start planning and scheduling some of the normal events, like the Halloween trunk or treat events.
Just
There's
get 'em on the
certainly the
calendar.
light ceremony, if we're gonna continue with that. So if you can get some dates assembled for us, I know they're out there.
Yeah.
Because I'm hearing people talk about, well, we need to get those on our calendar, okay? If you
perfect.
can help us with that.
Yeah.
Council, any comments, questions?
I just want to thank, have we had a council meetings? No, we haven't since Roy days. Because Michelle, you guys did a great job. And to cut the budget 2 years in a row, that's just fantastic. And I've heard nothing but great comments about the salmon bake. And I was surprised that you had the fireworks because I thought they were going to be rained out. And I was down in my basement and I thought something was exploding. And then I went outside and you had the fireworks. And I heard people comment and say that they were almost funner watching them in the rain. So thank you so much. It was very successful, and thanks for all your hard work for everybody who worked for the city and Public Works and all your employees. It was a great event, so thank you.
I'd like to second that. Thanks to all the employees and staff. It went off well. We learn every year from things. We get better every year. But it was a great event, and thank you. One other thing, there is tomorrow. There's the open house for the pump station completion down at the North Davis Sewer District. I think it's at 1 o'clock. Anybody will be there, but that'll be good to have that opened up. And
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Then do I have a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Second.
Okay, so Brian, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
That was an education.
Let the
Yes, sir.
Facebook- let the
Always is.
Facebook post start.